The October wind whistled through the mountain pines surrounding Jake Cohen's home office, carrying the first hints of winter. At 42, the former Navy SEAL's weathered features reflected the intensity that had kept him alive through 3 combat tours and countless high-risk operations. The clock on his desk showed 11:47 p.m., another late night reviewing training protocols for his wilderness survival school. The heating system clicked off, plunging the house into sudden silence. That's when he heard voices drifting up through the old heating vent. His wife Bridget's voice, but not the warm, supportive tone she usually affected. This was something else entirely. The snipers had already confirmed the position. Says he can set up near Miller's Creek Bend. Perfect angle for what we need. It'll look like a simple heart attack during his morning run. Bridget's words carried clearly through the metal ductwork. Jake's body went still, combat instincts kicking in as his hand moved silently to the desk drawer containing his backup phone. Without conscious thought, his fingers activated the recording function, muscle memory from countless covert operations taking over. "Your husband's nothing if not predictable," Herbert Blanchard's distinctive baritone replied. The voice of a man Jake had personally trained 3 years ago. 5-mile loop starts at 6:00 a.m. sharp, rain or shine. Should have learned to vary his routine. Some SEAL instructor he is. Jake's jaw tightened, but his hands remained steady as they positioned the phone for optimal recording. Herbert had been an average student at best, always looking for shortcuts, always trying to manipulate others into doing the heavy work. Now it all made sense. Dean confirmed the insurance policies yesterday. Bridget continued, papers rustling in the background. With Jake's military background and the school's success, they never questioned the coverage amounts. Triple payout for accidents. We're talking serious money here, Herbert, and you're sure he didn't notice anything unusual when he signed? Bridget's laugh was cold, calculated. Please, I've been handling all his paperwork for years. Show him documents while he's focused on training schedules or course planning, and he'll sign anything I put in front of him. The policies, the updated will, everything's ironclad. Dean made sure of that. Jake's fingers moved to his keyboard, pulling up the survival school's financial records. 15 years of marriage crystallized into something sharp and bitter, but he pushed the emotion aside. Feelings got people killed. Right now, he needed intelligence. The weather report's perfect, Herbert said. Rain that morning means fewer potential witnesses on the trail. Plus, no one questions a slip on wet rocks. I've thought of everything. Bridget's voice dropped lower, intimate in a way that made Jake's stomach turn. Got 3 separate witnesses lined up to testify about his recent depression. They'll say he's been worried about the school's finances, drinking more than usual. The Grieving Widow Act will be flawless. The financial records on Jake's screen revealed the first threads of their web. Irregular transfers disguised as equipment purchases, maintenance costs for non-existent repairs, small amounts spread across months, adding up to significant sums. His wife hadn't just been planning his murder. She'd been systematically stealing from him for God knows how long. Jake reached for his secure phone, typing a message to Marshall Huffman. 20 years of friendship, forged in SEAL training and strengthened through countless operations, made Marshall the one person he could trust completely. Now an FBI agent specializing in financial crimes, Marshall had the resources Jake needed. The message was brief but clear. Priority Alpha. Wife planning hit with Herbert Blanchard. Have initial recording. Financial irregularities discovered. Secure line when available. Marshall's response came within minutes. Position secure. Stand by for call in 30. Line scrambled. Below, the conversation continued. Jake recorded everything. His training allowing him to compartmentalize the personal devastation. There would be time for that later. Right now, he needed every detail. Dean's position at the insurance company makes everything look legitimate, Bridget was saying. He's already laid the groundwork for a quick, no questions payout. His department handles special cases. Your brother's cut seems steep, Herbert grumbled. Family rates. Bridget's tone was dismissive. Besides, we'll have more than enough. Jake's built quite the profitable operation here. All those corporate executives paying premium rates to learn how to eat bugs and start fires. It's almost funny. Jake's hands tightened on his desk, but his breathing remained steady. The school represented years of work, translating hard-earned combat experience into training that saved lives. Every course was meticulously designed, every instructor carefully vetted. He trusted Bridget to handle the business side while he focused on training. First mistake. His phone vibrated. Marshall, right on schedule. Talk to me. His friend's voice was pure business. Got about 15 minutes of them discussing the hit. Jake kept his voice low. Herbert's involved in the planning. Bridget's brother Dean works for the insurance company, helping set up fraudulent policies. They've got a shooter picked out for my morning run. Jesus Christ, Marshall breathed. You're recording everything. Affirmative. Found financial irregularities too. Need your forensic team to take a look. Send what you have. I'll put my best people on it. He's clicked rapidly in the background. You know Sophia Martinez, former student, corporate forensic accountant, handled some major cases in St. Louis. Why? She's consulting with us on a series of insurance fraud cases. Similar pattern. Executives found dead. Massive policies paid out. Want me to bring her in? Jake considered the implications. If you trust her, do it, but keep it tight. No idea how deep this goes. Copy that. What's your play with Bridget? Maintain routine. Let her think everything's normal while we gather intel. Jake's voice hardened. But I want everyone involved in this. Not just the trigger man. Understood. Starting surveillance on Herbert tomorrow. You got somewhere secure to send files. Jake provided an encrypted email address. Full recording coming in 5. Need to maintain position here. They're still talking. Watch your 6, brother. Check in every 6 hours. Miss a window. I come in hot. The call ended as Bridget's voice rose again from below. The school's autumn survival course starts next week. Perfect timing. Jake will be completely focused on the new students. What about Willard? Herbert asked. He's seen us together at the school. Willard knows better than to talk. Bridget's tone was confident. A few reminders about his previous difficulties were enough. He won't say anything. Jake added another name to his mental list. Willard James had been with the school for 5 years, one of his most trusted instructors. The betrayals were stacking up. The basement door opened, followed by footsteps heading toward the garage. Jake switched to his phone's camera, documenting Herbert's departure through the security feed. The private contractor moved with exaggerated stealth, trying to avoid the exterior lights. Amateur tactics. Call me tomorrow after you check with our friend. Bridget's final words drifted up. I want everything perfect for next week. Jake waited until he heard the garage door close, then the master bedroom door upstairs. Only then did he allow himself a moment to process. 15 years of marriage, countless shared moments, all built on lies. His phone buzzed. Marshall again. First sweep on Herbert's background complete, his friend reported. Been busy since certification. Private security contracts, but nothing clean. Connected to 3 suspected murder-for-hire cases in the last 2 years. Nothing stuck. Links to Dean Hand's insurance company. Working that angle. Sophia's pulling records now. Says she remembers you as the hardcore instructor who made us eat insects for survival training. Despite everything, Jake felt his lids twitch. Character building. She's solid, Jake. One of the best forensic minds I've worked with. Okay to give her access to your financials. Approved. Want everything documented before we move. Jake paused. Any idea on the shooter? Working on it. Herbert's made 4 calls to a blocked number this week. Cell tower puts them near veteran housing on the east side. Cross-referencing now. The next morning, dawn gray and cold. Jake drove to his office at the survival school. Mind working through contingencies. Marshall's team would be on site within hours, But first he needed to establish normal patterns. His phone buzzed with a text from Marshall. Shooter identified. Frederick Stewart, former Army sniper, discharged for unauthorized actions in Afghanistan. Local PD has eyes on him. Jake parked in his usual spot, noting how Willard quickly looked away when their paths crossed in the parking lot. The instructor's guilty conscience was writing checks his courage couldn't cash. "Morning, Willard," Jake called out, watching the man's shoulders tense. "Weather holding up?" "Yes, sir." Willard wouldn't meet his eyes. "Forecast says rain later. Perfect for the advanced shelter building class." Jake kept his tone professional. "You're still handling that?" "Of course." Willard shifted uncomfortably. "If you'll excuse me, need to check equipment." Jake watched him hurry away. Adding another piece to the puzzle, Willard's reaction confirmed his involvement, or at least his knowledge of the plot. Marshall arrived at 9:00 a.m., accompanied by a woman. Jake recognized immediately. Sophia Martinez had attended his advanced survival course 2 years ago, standing out for her analytical mind and determination. Now she carried herself with the confident precision of someone used to unraveling complex financial crimes. "Good to see you again, Instructor Cohen." She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "Though I wish it were under better circumstances." They gathered in Jake's office, windows offering a clear view of the training grounds where Herbert had learned the skills he now planned to use against his former teacher. "Your wife's been busy." Sophia opened her laptop, pulling up detailed financial records. "Started small, a few thousand here and there, disguised as equipment purchases. Got bolder over the last 6 months. Money's moving through a series of shell companies before landing in offshore accounts. Dean Hand's fingerprints are all over it." She pulled up another screen. "Found property listings too. High-end real estate in countries with no extradition treaties. They'd been planning this for a while. Herbert's been busy too." Marshall added, "Surveillance caught him meeting with Frederick Stewart yesterday. Stewart's been running practice rounds on your jogging route for the past week. Professional setup. He's not taking chances." Jake absorbed the information, mind already mapping out countermoves. "What about Dean?" Sophia's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Found irregularities in at least 6 other insurance cases. Executives died under suspicious circumstances, all with recently increased policy amounts. Dean handled each claim personally. Too clean to be a coincidence. We're building the case," Marshall said, "but we need more. Direct evidence linking them all together. They're planning it for next week." Jake's voice was cold. "During the autumn course, Bridget thinks I'll be distracted with the new students. She's getting sloppy," Sophia noted. "Found recent searches on her work computer. Articles about wilderness accidents, cardiac events during exercise. She's researching how to make it look natural." Jake's phone buzzed. A text from Bridget. "Don't forget we have dinner with Herbert tonight. He wants to discuss some security upgrades for the school." Perfect timing. Marshall looked up from his own phone. "We'll have surveillance equipment in place by then. Need audio on whatever they discuss." "They're getting confident," Sophia added. "Still scanning financial records. Found more transfers this morning. Large ones. They think they're in the clear." Jake typed a response to Bridget. "See you at 7. Each interaction felt like handling a venomous snake, requiring precise control and perfect timing. "What's our next move?" Marshall asked. "We maintain routine." Jake's voice was steady. "Let them think everything's proceeding according to plan. Meanwhile, we document everything. Every meeting, every call, every transaction. When we move, I want it all. I'll coordinate with local law enforcement." Marshall nodded. "Keep eyes on Stewart. Make sure he doesn't get jumpy and try something early. I'll track the money." Sophia added, "Every account. Every transfer. They won't be able to hide anything." Jake looked out his office window, watching Willard hurry across the training ground. Another piece of the puzzle that would need addressing. "Keep Bridget and Herbert in focus," he said. "But don't forget about Dean. He's the connection to other cases, Might be more victims we don't know about. The pieces came together over the next 2 days. Sophia's investigation revealed the full scope of the financial theft. Nearly $2 million siphoned from the school's accounts through a complex web of fake vendors and inflated expenses. Your wife's clever, Sophia said, walking Jake through the documentation, but she got greedy. Started taking bigger risks, leaving more traces. Classic pattern. They always think they're smarter than everyone else. The forensic accountant had set up temporary office space in a secure room at the FBI field office. Walls covered with financial diagrams and transaction records. Jake studied the patterns, seeing how Bridget had used his trust against him. Dean's been running similar schemes for years, she continued. Found at least 8 other cases. All followed the same pattern. Sudden policy increases, suspicious deaths, quick payouts, total amounts over $20 million. Marshall burst in, phone in hand, just intercepted a call between Herbert and Stewart. They're planning to move up the timeline. Weather report shows clear skies next week. Jake's expression didn't change. When? 3 days. Stewart wants better visibility for the shot. Marshall pulled up surveillance photos. He's been practicing with a high-end hunting rifle. Makes it look like he's just another sportsman sighting in his scope. Dean's getting nervous too, Sophia added. He cleared his calendar for next week. Bought plane tickets to Geneva. Jake processed the information, mind working through scenarios. Show me Stewart's practice route. Marshall pulled up a topographical map, marking positions. He's been setting up here, above Miller's Creek. Good angle, natural cover. About 400 yards to the jogging trail. Challenging shot in the rain. Jake noted, no wonder he wants clear weather. We got audio from your dinner with him last night. Marshall continued. Bridget played it perfectly. Concerned wife. Totally natural. If we didn't have evidence, she's had years to practice. Jake's voice was cold. All those business meetings, handling the paperwork. Perfect cover for what she was really doing. Sophia looked up from her computer. Just found something interesting. Herbert's been skimming too. Taking extra from the money Bridget's been stealing. She has no idea. Honor among thieves. Marshall snorted. What about Willard? Jake asked. Surveillance caught him meeting with Bridget yesterday. Marshall pulled up photos. She's got something on him. He looked terrified. But he's not directly involved in the plot. He knew about the affair. Sophia added. Found emails. Bridget threatened to expose some past misconduct if he talked. He chose self-preservation. Jake's phone buzzed. Bridget again. Don't forget your physical tomorrow. Insurance requires annual updates. She doesn't quit, Marshall said, reading over Jake's shoulder. No, Jake agreed. She doesn't. He typed a response. Already on my calendar. The pieces were falling into place. Bridget and Herbert planning his death over coffee and casual dinners. Dean falsifying documents and covering their tracks. Stewart methodically practicing the shot that would end his life. And Willard, too weak to warn him. We've got enough to move on the financial crimes, Sophia said. But proving murder conspiracy. We wait. Jake's voice was firm. Let them commit. Document everything. When we move, I want them all. Marshall nodded slowly. Dangerous game, brother. They chose the game. Jake stood, looking out over the training grounds where he built his life's work. I'm just choosing the ending. The sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the obstacle courses and training areas. Somewhere up there, a sniper was planning his shot. In their bedroom, his wife was probably picking out her grieving widow outfit. They thought they were hunting him. They didn't realize they were the ones being hunted. Jake checked his watch. Almost time for his evening run. Bridget would be watching, noting his routine, believing everything was going according to plan. Let her watch. Let them all watch. The game was just beginning. Smoke billowed over the mountain ridges as Jake Cohen stood at the survival school's command center, watching the forest fire advance through the northern section of his property. Nature had thrown an unexpected variable into the equation. But like every other crisis in his life, it would serve his purposes. Fire lines holding at Sector 7. Chief Roberts of the local fire department reported, pointing to the tactical map. But the wind's shifting. You've got maybe 3 hours before we need to evacuate the main compound. Jake studied the fire's progression, mind already calculating how to use this crisis to his advantage. I'll get the students out first. Essential equipment next. His phone buzzed. Bridget. Right on cue. Honey, this is terrible. The news says the fire's getting close. Maybe you should increase the insurance coverage just in case. The false concern in her voice would have fooled most people. Jake typed back. Good thinking. I'll talk to Dean about it. Marshall appeared at his side. FBI credentials getting him past the emergency responders. Surveillance caught Herbert watching the fire from Miller's Ridge. He's been on the phone nonstop. Let me guess. Checking how fire might affect their timeline. Got it in one. Stewart's not happy about the evacuation orders. Says it's messing with his sight lines. Jake's lip curled slightly. Shame. A commotion near the main building drew their attention. Willard James was arguing with another instructor, his voice carrying across the yard. We can't just leave everything. Willard's face was flushed. There are important documents in the office. Jake moved toward them, his presence immediately silencing both men. Problem. No, sir. Willard wouldn't meet his eyes. Just concerned about the evacuation. Interesting. Jake's voice was casual. Which documents are you so worried about? Willard paled. Just administrative files. Student records. All backed up off-site. Jake watched him squirm. Unless there's something specific you're concerned about. Before Willard could respond, Herbert's black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The private contractor stepped out, playing the role of concerned colleague perfectly. Heard about the fire on the news. Herbert called out. Thought you could use some security consultation. Lot of valuable equipment here. Jake noted how Herbert's eyes darted between him and Willard, assessing the situation. Very thoughtful of you. That's me. Always thinking of others. Herbert's smile didn't reach his eyes. Maybe we should discuss some upgraded security measures. Fire's not the only threat to consider. Indeed it isn't. Jake's voice was neutral. Why don't you join me in my office? Willard was just leaving to help with the evacuation. Willard practically ran across the yard. Marshall, watching from near the command center, casually activated his recording equipment. In Jake's office, Herbert made a show of examining the security monitors. Quite a setup you have here, but outdated in some areas. I noticed your morning running route has some significant blind spots. Concern for my safety. Jake leaned against his desk. Professional courtesy. Herbert's attempt at a casual shrug looked rehearsed. Former student looking out for his instructor. Speaking of looking out, Jake kept his voice level. Saw you talking with Willard earlier this week. Anything I should know about? A flash of something. Surprise. Concern. Crossed Herbert's face before his professional mask returned. Just catching up. Why? Seemed intense for casual conversation. Willard's got a lot on his mind lately. Herbert's tone suggested hidden meaning. Stress can make people do strange things. Make bad decisions. The threat was clear enough. Jake simply nodded, letting Herbert think his message landed. Outside, the fires roared louder. Perfect timing. Should evacuate soon. Jake gestured to the smoke visible through his window. Unless there's something specific you needed to discuss. Herbert stood, straightening his expensive jacket. Just wanted to check on you. These are dangerous times, that they are. After Herbert left, Marshall slipped into the office. Got it all on tape. He's getting cocky. They all are. Jake watched Herbert's SUV pull away. Bridget's already called twice about increasing the insurance. Speaking of your wife, Marshall handed him a file. Surveillance caught her meeting with someone interesting this morning. Local lawyer named Cesar Delgado. Jake scanned the photos. His wife, dressed for business, entering a downtown law office. Background. Sophia's running it now. but preliminary dig shows connections to Dean Hand's other cases. Handled estate settlements for 3 of the suspicious deaths. Jake's phone buzzed again. Bridget once more. Coming home early. This fire has me so worried about you. We should talk about the future. I bet we should, Jake muttered. Marshall read the message over his shoulder. She's pushing hard. Fire's making them nervous, disrupting their timeline. Jake smiled coldly. Let's use that. The evacuation provided perfect cover for Jake's countermoves. While fire crews battled the blaze, he orchestrated a careful dance of asset protection that had nothing to do with the flames. Transfer confirmed. Sophia reported from her temporary office at the FBI building. Offshore accounts are set up, mirroring their structure. When we move, they won't have anywhere to hide the money. Jake reviewed the documentation. Dean's involvement. Still running their original playbook. Sophia pulled up transaction records. He's been processing more policy updates this week. Your wife's been busy. She redecorated the entire house yesterday. Jake's voice held cold amusement. Started talking about European vacations. Classic pre-widow behavior. Marshall added, studying surveillance photos. She's already shopping for resort wear online. Found searches for appropriate funeral attire too. Jake's phone recorded another call between Bridget and Herbert the night before. The fire's perfect cover, Bridget had said. He's distracted with the school. Isn't thinking clearly. We should move soon. Herbert's voice was cautious. Stewart says the smoke affects visibility. Then wait for it to clear. I can't take much more of this pretending. Do you know he actually tried to kiss me goodnight yesterday? I nearly threw up. Patience, baby. Few more days. Then you never have to see him again. Jake played the recording for Marshall and Sophia. They're getting sloppy. Emotional. Good. Marshall nodded. Emotional people make mistakes. Speaking of which, got something interesting from Willard's surveillance. The footage showed Willard meeting Bridget behind the evacuation center, his body language screaming discomfort. I can't keep doing this. Willard's voice shook. You'll do exactly what we need. Bridget's tone was pure ice. Unless you want everyone to know about those funds you misappropriated last year, the ones I helped cover up. That's different. This is murder. This is business. Bridget, step closer. And your business is keeping your mouth shut. Clear. Jake watched his wife's performance with clinical detachment. Add financial fraud to Willard's charges when this is done. Already documented. Sophia was typing rapidly. Found the missing funds she helped him hide. She skimmed from the training equipment budget. She used it as leverage. Marshall's phone bust. Surveillance team reporting in. Herbert's meeting with Stewart right now. The photos showed the 2 men in a remote parking lot. Herbert passing what looked like building plans. Those are the school security layouts. Jake recognized the documents. He copied them during his consultation yesterday. Stewart's not happy about the delays. Marshall noted, reading the surveillance team's updates. Says the fires brought too much attention to the area. Herbert will push him back in line. Jake's voice was certain. Too much money involved for them to back out now. His phone lit up with another text from Bridget. Honey, I'm thinking of planning a special dinner tomorrow night. Just the 2 of us. You've been so stressed with the fire. How thoughtful. Jake showed the message to Marshall. Wanna bet she'll suggest I keep to my running routine. Exercise is good for stress relief. Sucker bet. Marshall grimaced. She's really playing the devoted wife angle hard. Makes it easier to sell the grieving widow story later. Sophia looked up from her computer. Found her browser history. She's been researching grief counselors, already picked out one to see after your accident. Jake's smile was predatory. Shame she won't make the appointment. The fire crews finally contained the blaze that evening, keeping it away from the main compound. Jake drove home through smoke-tinged darkness, mind moving through the final phases of his plan. Bridget was waiting with dinner prepared, his favorite meal. He noted with grim amusement. She'd even opened an expensive bottle of wine. You must be exhausted. She touched his arm. This fire, all the evacuation stress. I've been so worried. Nothing I can't handle. Jake watched her hand on his sleeve, remembering how she discussed his death in that same caring tone. I know, honey, you're always so strong. She poured more wine. That's why I think you should keep to your routine. The morning run, especially. Exercise is the best stress relief. Right on schedule. Jake took a sip of wine. Might skip it tomorrow. Lot of smoke in the air. Oh, but you never skip your run. It's part of what makes you you. So disciplined. So reliable. So predictable. She meant so easy to plan around. You're right, he said, watching her victory smile. Shouldn't let the fire disrupt everything. Later, he listened to her make a call from the garden. It's set for tomorrow. He'll be on his usual route. Make sure Stuart's ready. The final pieces fell into place over the next 24 hours. While Bridget planned his death over scented candles and wine, Jake closed the net around her entire operation. Delgado's been busy, Sophia reported, showing him documents from the lawyer's office. Divorce papers already drawn up, dated for after your unfortunate accident. He's got connections to every case we found with Dean. Always handles the estate settlements. Local PD's in position, Marshall added. Units staged along the entire running route. Stuart won't be able to move without us knowing. Jake reviewed the surveillance photos. Herbert's getting nervous. 3 meetings with Stuart today. Bridget's not much better. Sophia pulled up more records. She's been calling Dean nonstop. Once confirmation, the insurance policies are ready. Marshall's phone bust. Speaking of Dean, just got word from the office. Found 6 more cases. Same pattern. Same players. Delgado handled the estates. Dean processed the insurance. Over $30 million total. Any survivors asking questions? 2 families hired private investigators last year. Both PIs died in car accidents. Jake's expression hardened. Add that to the charges. His phone lit up. Bridget again. Don't forget about our dinner tonight. Honey, I've got something special planned. I bet you do, Jake muttered. The special dinner was elaborate. Bridget's full performance as the devoted wife. She'd even invited Herbert, playing her role as gracious hostess while the 2 of them exchanged knowing looks. Jake, you seem tense, Herbert observed with fake concern. Maybe you should stick to your morning run tomorrow. Clear your head. Great idea. Bridget touched Jake's arm. You shouldn't break your routine just because of a little rain in the forecast. Routine is important. Herbert nodded sagely. Keeps us grounded in times of stress. Jake watched them perform their little play, noting every glance, every subtle signal. His wife and her lover, so confident in their clever plan. After Herbert left, Bridget was especially attentive. Promise me you'll do your run tomorrow. I hate seeing you so stressed. Already laid out my gear, Jake said, watching her eyes light up. That's my disciplined husband. She kissed his cheek. So reliable. In their bedroom, Jake heard her make one final call from the in-suite bathroom. Everything's set. He'll be on the trail at exactly 6. Don't screw this up. Jake closed his eyes, listening to his wife plan his murder between brushing her teeth and applying night cream. 15 years of marriage ending in a conspiracy of greed and betrayal. Tomorrow would be interesting. His phone buzzed one last time. Marshall, all units in position. SWAT team stage. Ready when you are. Jake sent a simple response. Execute as planned. He looked at his running gear, laid out with perfect military precision. Bridget had added his GPS-tagged phone to the pile, making sure she could track his final run. Let them think they knew his routine. Let them think they had him figured out. Tomorrow they'd learn what it really meant to hunt a seal. Dawn broke over the mountains with sheets of driving rain, turning the wilderness survival school's training grounds into a maze of shadows and mist. Perfect weather for hunting. Or being hunted. Jake Cohen stood in his driveway, stretching with deliberate precision. Through the master bedroom window, He caught Bridget's reflection watching him, phone already in hand. The hidden cameras Marshall's team had installed captured everything. Her eager expression, the rapid typing of her message to Herbert. He's starting now. Everything's ready. What his wife couldn't see was the fleet of unmarked vehicles hidden throughout the neighborhood, or the SWAT teams that had tracked Stewart to his sniper's nest through the night. She didn't know about the FBI surveillance van disguised as a utility truck 3 houses down where Marshall and Sophia monitored every transmission. Inside the van, Marshall watched the feeds, targets moving into position. All units hold. Bridget sending more texts, Sophia reported, monitoring the communications, telling Herbert to make sure Stewart's ready, reminding him about their flight reservations for tomorrow. Classy woman, your friend's wife. Marshall's jaw tightened. She's going to be really disappointed about missing that flight. The radio crackled. Stewart spotted at coordinates Charlie 3, setting up equipment. Roger that. Marshall keyed his mic. All units maintain position. Wait for the signal. Through the rain, they watched Jake begin his warm-up routine. His movements were unhurried, precise. A man with no idea he was supposed to die in the next 30 minutes. In the master bedroom, Bridget made another call. The directional microphones picked up every word. It's happening. She told Herbert, he's doing his stupid stretches right now. God, I can't wait to be done with this facade. Do you know he actually tried to hug me last night? I nearly threw up. Herbert's laugh was cruel. Soon, baby, very soon, Stewart's in position. Says the rain works in our favor. Fewer witnesses on the trail. Dean confirmed everything's ready on his end. Double-check this morning. Insurance papers are perfect. Delgado has the divorce documents backdated and ready to file. Once the police confirm the accident, everything moves like clockwork. Bridget's smile was visible through the window. I've already packed most of my things, left enough to make it look normal, but everything valuable is ready to go. The grieving widow routine won't last long. I'm thinking 2 months of black dresses before we reconnect for comfort. You really are perfect, Herbert purred. Cold as ice. Speaking of cold, Bridget, watch Jake finish his stretches. Our mighty seal's about to have a very bad morning. Call me the second it's done. In the surveillance van, Marshall's hand tightened on his radio. Bridget's clear for pickup. Strike teams in position. Alpha team ready. Bravo standing by. Charlie unit has eyes on Stewart. Sophia looked up from her monitors. Just intercepted a text from Dean to Delgado. He's at the insurance office early, getting the claim paperwork ready. Real confident bunch about to get a reality check. Marshall watched Jake start his run. All units, execute on command. Let's finish this. The rain intensified, drumming against the van's roof as Jake disappeared into the pre-dawn gloom. Right on schedule. Right where they wanted him. Time for the hunters to become the hunted. Frederick Stewart settled into his shooting position above Miller's Creek, expensive rifle trained on the trail below. The former Army sniper had done his homework. Trajectory, wind speed, visibility factors all accounted for. Should look like a natural accident. Slipped on wet rocks, tragic fall, unfortunate cardiac event during his morning exercise. Clean, professional, lucrative. His radio crackled. Target approaching checkpoint 1. Stewart made minute adjustments to his scope. Almost time. Just had to wait for the mark to round that last bend. The first hint something was wrong came from movement in his peripheral vision. Subtle shadows detaching from the wet foliage, moving with trained precision. Federal agents, drop your weapon. Stewart's combat instincts kicked in, but too late. SWAT team members materialized from the rain, weapons trained. No clean angles. No escape routes. Game over. Across town, Herbert Blanchard sat in his usual cafe, carefully constructing his alibi. The morning staff knew him, would remember him being here during his client's tragic accident. Everything planned to the last detail. His phone buzzed. Bridget's number. Is it done? He answered eagerly. The voice that replied wasn't Bridget's. "Hello, Herbert." Jake's tone was coldly amused. "Having coffee?" Herbert's blood ran cold. Through the cafe window, he saw unmarked vehicles sliding into position. "You should have paid more attention in my advanced tactics course," Jake continued, "especially the lessons about situational awareness." FBI agents entered through both doors. Herbert's expensive coffee cup shattered on the floor. At the insurance office, Dean Hand was already shredding documents when his office door burst open. Marshal Huffman led the raid personally. "Dean Hand," Marshal held up his badge. "We need to discuss some irregularities in your recent policy work." "I want my lawyer," Dean stammered. "Kaiser Delgado." Marshal smiled without humor. "He's being arrested as we speak. But don't worry. We have plenty of questions for both of you." Back at the Cohen residence, Bridget paced by the window, checking her phone repeatedly. The GPS tracker showed Jake's position on the trail, right where he should be. So why hadn't Herbert called? Red and blue lights suddenly flooded the room. Through the rain, she saw police vehicles surrounding the house. Her phone rang. Herbert's number. She snatched it up. "Where have you been? Is it done?" "Hello, Bridget." Her husband's voice froze her in place. "Looking for Herbert. He's a little busy right now. Being booked for conspiracy to commit murder, among other things." Bridget ran for the back door. FBI agents were already there. "You really should have checked those insurance policies more carefully." Jake continued. His agents moved in. "Amazing what a good forensic accountant can find." "You bastard." Bridget spat, watching handcuffs gleam in the raid lights. "I gave you 15 years of my life." "No," Jake's voice was steel. "You spent 15 years planning to take mine." "There's a difference." The FBI team reached her just as she tried to delete her phone's contents. "Don't bother," Jake said through the speaker. "We have everything. Every call, every text, every transfer. Say hello to Herbert in holding." Bridget's mascara ran in black streaks as agents led her out into the rain. Through the storm, she saw Jake standing by a police car, Marshall, and Sophia beside him. Her husband's expression was cold, victorious. The longtime hunter had become the prey, never seeing the trap until it snapped shut. 6 months later, the federal courthouse buzzed with anticipation as Jake took the witness stand. In the defendant's section, Bridget sat in prison orange, her carefully maintained appearance reduced to institutional basics. Beside her, Herbert looked equally deflated in his jumpsuit. Dean and Stewart completed the tableau of failed conspirators. Jake's testimony was clinical, devastating. Every recording, every document, every piece of evidence presented with tactical precision. The prosecution built an airtight case of conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. "And when did you first become aware of the plot?" the prosecutor asked. "The night I overheard my wife and Mr. Blanchard discussing payment arrangements with their hitman." Jake's voice carried through the hushed courtroom. "They were quite detailed about their plans for my morning run." Bridget's face twisted with impotent rage. The woman who had played grieving widow in rehearsal now faced the reality of grieving her own freedom instead. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The verdicts took 2 hours. Conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, money laundering. The charges stacked up like cordwood. Bridget, 25 years. Herbert, 20 years. Dean, 15 years. Stewart, 12 years. Cesar Delgado's disbarment was just the beginning of his troubles. The investigation revealed his connection to multiple suspicious deaths, each tied to Dean's insurance schemes. The corrupt instructors who had known about the affair faced their own reckonings. Most lost their certifications. Some faced criminal charges for failing to report the conspiracy. Some faced criminal charges for failing to report the conspiracy. Others faced criminal charges for failing to report the conspiracy. Some faced criminal charges for failing to report the conspiracy. Others faced criminal charges for failing to report the conspiracy. Willard James received a lighter sentence for cooperation, trading his instructor status for a maintenance position. A living reminder that loyalty misplaced was loyalty wasted. 1 year later, the survival school's 10th anniversary celebration drew hundreds of guests. Jake watched from the podium as Marshall received his FBI commendation for cracking the case. Today we celebrate not just 10 years of teaching survival skills, Jake addressed the crowd, but the importance of awareness, of knowing who stands beside you when the storm hits. His eyes met Sophia's in the audience. Their relationship had grown naturally from professional respect to something deeper. She understood him in ways Bridget never had or never wanted to. The most crucial survival skill isn't starting fires or finding water. It's knowing who's really on your side. Trust earned through action, not promised through words. In the back, Willard listened as he mopped the floor. His reduced status, a constant reminder of choices made and prices paid. The survival school had emerged stronger. Jake added a new program specifically for law enforcement and security personnel, teaching them to recognize the threats that hide behind friendly faces. Marshall joined him regularly as a guest instructor. Their friendship forged in combat now strengthened by surviving betrayal together. The wilderness isn't the most dangerous environment we face, Jake told his new students. The deadliest predators often are familiar faces and speak comforting words. True survival means recognizing the threat before it strikes. In their prison cells, his would-be killers had plenty of time to reflect on that lesson. Bridget's carefully planned future of wealth and freedom had dissolved into concrete walls and steel bars. Herbert's smug confidence was reduced to wearing the same clothes as every other inmate. Dean's insurance schemes would never claim another victim. They had thought him predictable, thought his disciplined routine made him vulnerable. They never understood that discipline wasn't his weakness. It was his armor, the methodical mind that logged every betrayal, recorded every conversation, and constructed an unbreakable case. The predator they had tried to hunt had turned out to be deadlier than they imagined. Standing at the podium, Jake surveyed his rebuilt world. The school was thriving. The conspirators were imprisoned. Justice had been served with the same precise efficiency he brought to everything. No regrets, no what-ifs, just the cold satisfaction of a mission perfectly executed. The rain had washed away the last traces of his old life, leaving something stronger in its place, a reminder to everyone that some people shouldn't be underestimated. Some hunters are never truly prey. Epilogue. 2 years later. Bridget Cohen, inmate number 247,891 at the Federal Correctional Institution, found prison life a stark contrast to the luxury she had planned. Her designer wardrobe replaced by standard issue orange, expensive haircuts grown out to reveal gray roots, manicured nails reduced to institutional regulations. 25 years stretched ahead of her like an endless desert. The woman who once manipulated millions now counted coins in the commissary, her offshore accounts frozen, assets seized. Her carefully cultivated image of sophistication had crumbled into the reality of 6 a.m. wake-up calls and cafeteria meals. Her cellmate, a former bank executive serving time for fraud, often heard Bridget crying at night. Not from remorse, never that, but from rage at her plans unraveling. She kept newspaper clippings about the case until guards confiscated them during a cell inspection. SEAL's wife conspires with lover in failed murder plot. Wilderness survival expert outmaneuvers would-be killer. Multi-million-dollar insurance fraud ring expose. Herbert didn't fare much better. 3 cell blocks over. 20 years of watching his back, knowing his reputation among inmates. Former military-turned-murderer for hire, didn't play well in the yard. 2 attempted assaults in his first month taught him to stay in his cell, except for mandatory activities. Their weekly phone calls, monitored by prison authorities, devolved from planning appeals to bitter recriminations. "You promised this was foolproof," Bridget hissed during one call. "Said your military training made you smarter than him. You're the one who got sloppy." Herbert shot back. "All those late-night meetings, thinking he was too stupid to notice. Some wife you were. At least I'm not the one who trained with him for 3 years and still couldn't outmaneuver him. You're pathetic, Herbert. No wonder he saw through you." The calls grew shorter, less frequent, until they stopped altogether. Their grand romance, built on schemes and betrayal, withered in the harsh light of consequences. Dean Hand's 15-year sentence came with additional penalties. The insurance company's internal investigation uncovered decades of fraud, leading to civil suits from victims' families. His assets were liquidated, his reputation destroyed. Even his own family disowned him, the Hand name becoming synonymous with corporate corruption. Frederick Stewart's 12 years felt like a lifetime for a man used to action. The former sniper's skills meant nothing in a 6x8 cell. His military discharge, already dishonorable, gained new notoriety when the case went public. Future employment prospects vanished like smoke. Cesar Delgado's disbarment was just the beginning. The investigation into his practice revealed connections to organized crime, money laundering, and multiple fraudulent deaths. Federal prosecutors built a separate case, adding another decade to his sentence. While his would-be killers counted prison days, Jake Cohen's wilderness survival school flourished. The publicity, though unwanted, brought international attention. Corporate clients, fascinated by how he outmaneuvered the conspiracy, requested specialized security training. The new law enforcement program became his flagship course, detecting internal threats through agents from the FBI, DEA, and international organizations. Jake and Marshall's team taught sessions that always began with a simple question: who's the most dangerous predator you'll face? The answer wasn't found in the wilderness. Sofia Martinez's role evolved beyond forensic accounting. Her analytical skills complemented Jake's tactical experience, helping redesign the school's business operations. Their relationship grew naturally, built on mutual respect and shared understanding of betrayal's cost. "You could have lost everything," she told him one evening, reviewing the school's expanding financial reports. "Lost?" Jake's smile held cold amusement. "I gained clarity. Removed threats I didn't know existed. Some storms clear the air." Marshall's FBI career soared after the case. His methodical dismantling of the conspiracy became a training model for complex fraud investigations. He still taught monthly at the school, sharing insights from new cases. "You know what amazes me?" he asked Jake during one session. "How they never realized what they were dealing with. Thought they were so clever, playing house and planning murder over coffee. People see what they expect." Jake replied, "Bridget saw a predictable husband. Herbert saw a trusting mentor. They never looked deeper." The corrupt instructors who had kept quiet about the affair faced their own reckonings. Professional certifications revoked. Careers ruined. Some faced criminal charges for failing to report the conspiracy. Others, blacklisted from security work, found themselves unemployable in their chosen field. Willard James accepted his reduced status with quiet resignation. The former instructor, now maintaining the grounds he once taught on, became a living cautionary tale. Students whispered about the man who chose wrong, who watched betrayal unfold and said nothing. Jake kept him on staff deliberately. Every time Willard mopped the floors where he once taught, every time he maintained equipment he once used in demonstrations, the message was clear. Loyalty misplaced was worse than no loyalty at all. The survival school's reputation grew beyond outdoor skills. Jake's experience became a case study in corporate security programs. The Cohen protocols entered the lexicon of protective services, systematic methods for detecting internal threats. "Your wife's case requests another appeal," Marshall asked during a training break. Third one denied. Jake didn't look up from his course plans. "She's trying to claim inadequate counsel now." "Herbert's still in solitary," Sophia added, joining them with fresh intelligence. "Started a fight when another inmate mentioned the case. Broke 3 bones before guards stopped it." Dean's cooperation bid got rejected too, Marshall continued. "Tried offering evidence about other insurance scams. Too little, too late." Jake absorbed the information with clinical detachment. The conspirators' desperation didn't interest me, only their containment. The school's 10th anniversary celebration became international news. Security professionals from 30 countries attended. drawn by the story of betrayal forwarded through methodical preparation. Sophia organized the event with precision that matched Jake's own. Their relationship, built on shared experience and complementary skills, stood in stark contrast to the facade his marriage had been. Different when it's real, she noted, watching him review security arrangements. Not having to pretend. Jake's slight smile acknowledged the truth. They worked in comfortable silence, each understanding the other's methods. No fake concern. No hidden agendas, just clear objectives and professional execution. The case became required reading at FBI training. Marshall's presentations emphasized key points: how Jake documented everything from first suspicion, the importance of maintaining routine while gathering intelligence, coordination between multiple agencies, financial forensics revealing deeper conspiracies. The mistake wasn't just criminal, he told trainees. It was tactical. They chose the wrong target, never understanding what they were up against. Private security firms studied the conspiracy's collapse. Herbert's failures became textbook examples of overconfidence leading to exposure. His students now learned from his mistakes, never knowing their instructor had helped plan a murder. Bridget's prison psychiatrist noted her lack of remorse. In mandatory sessions, she remained fixated on the failure rather than the crime. Her carefully constructed world of manipulation had shattered against something she couldn't control.